What if I told you that right now, as you're watching this video, someone could be trapped underground just 20 feet from where you walk every day? And you'd never know they were there, screaming for help, waiting to die in the darkness. This isn't fiction. This happened. And after you hear this story, you'll never look at hiking trails the same way again. March 15, 1987. The morning mist still clung to the trees of Blackwater Canyon, West Virginia, when Forest Ranger Michael Chen began what he thought would be another routine patrol. 12 years he'd walked these woods. 12 years of knowing every twisted branch, every hidden ravine, every sound that belonged, and every sound that didn't. But as Chen approached mile marker 47, something made his blood freeze. It was crying, faint, desperate, coming from somewhere deep in the forest where no human should be. Chen had heard plenty of sounds in his years patrolling Blackwater Canyon. Bears growling in the underbrush, owls shrieking in the night, even the occasional lost hiker calling for help. But this was different. This was the sound of someone who had given up hope. Someone who was dying. Put yourself in Chen's boots for a moment. You're alone in the middle of nowhere. You hear crying coming from the forest. Do you investigate, or do you turn around and call for backup? Let me know in the comments what you would do. Chen followed the sound deeper into the undergrowth. Branches tore at his uniform as he pushed through thorns and fallen logs. The crying grew louder, more desperate. But here's what made Chen's skin crawl. The sound wasn't coming from ground level. It was coming from beneath his feet. 20 feet off the main hiking trail, hidden beneath a pile of rotting logs and debris, Chen discovered something that defied explanation. What looked like natural forest floor was actually camouflaged boards. Someone had built a trap door. Someone had been very, very careful to hide it. And the crying was coming from inside. Chen's hands trembled as he called out, "Hello? Is someone down there?" The crying stopped instantly. For a terrifying moment, Chen wondered if he'd imagined the whole thing. Then a voice responded, weak, barely human. "Please, help me." What Chen discovered when he pried open that trapdoor will haunt him for the rest of his life. Because this wasn't just some makeshift shelter or abandoned root cellar. Someone had built an underground prison. The bunker was roughly 8 feet by 12 feet, carved directly into the earth and reinforced with stolen lumber. A single bare bulb hung from a frayed electrical cord that snaked up through the ceiling. The smell that hit Chen was indescribable. Human waste, rotting food, and something else. Something that smelled like death. But what he saw in that dim light was even worse. Chained to the far wall was a woman. Her clothes were filthy rags. Her hair was matted with mud and blood. Her wrists were raw and bleeding from the shackles that held her to the wall. She looked up at Chen with eyes that had seen hell, and whispered 2 words that still echo in his nightmares. "You're real?" I want you to imagine that moment. You're expecting to find maybe an injured animal, or at worst, someone who fell into a hole. Instead, you find a human being chained like an animal in an underground cell. How do you even process something like that? The woman was Rebecca Martinez, 23 years old, a graduate student from Virginia Tech, who had been reported missing 3 weeks earlier. She had been hiking alone on the Appalachian Trail when she simply vanished. No trace, no clues, just gone. Now Chen knew where she'd been all this time. But as Chen helped Rebecca to the surface, she grabbed his arm with shocking strength and whispered something that made his blood turn to ice. "He's coming back. He always comes back at sunset." Chen radioed for emergency medical assistance, and within an hour, Rebecca was on her way to the hospital. But before she left, she managed to tell Chen something that turned this rescue into something much, much darker. She wasn't the first. "The pictures," she whispered to Chen as the paramedics loaded her into the ambulance. "Look at the pictures on the walls." When investigators returned to examine the bunker more thoroughly, They made a discovery that transformed a kidnapping case into one of the most disturbing serial crimes in West Virginia history. The walls were covered with photographs, dozens of them, Polaroids showing at least 6 different people, all chained in that same bunker, all in various stages of captivity. However, what made it infinitely worse was that some of the photos were dated years earlier. Rebecca had been trapped in what investigators realized was a carefully maintained death chamber. Scattered around the bunker were personal belongings from missing hikers dating back 4 years. Backpacks, hiking boots, driver's licenses, wedding rings. Each item told the story of someone who had walked into these woods and never walked out. The forensic team found something else that made their investigation even more urgent. Fresh tire tracks leading to a dirt road half a mile away. Whoever had built this underground prison was still active, still hunting, and according to Rebecca, he was coming back. "This is where I need to ask you something," Rebecca said. "He always comes back at sunset." It was now 3 p.m. Would you have waited in those woods to try to catch him? Or would you have evacuated the area and set up surveillance from a distance? Tell me in the comments how you think law enforcement should have handled this. Police set up a perimeter around the bunker site and waited. Chen volunteered to stay, despite orders to evacuate the civilian personnel. This was his forest. He'd walked past this horror for years without knowing it existed. He wanted to see the face of the monster who had been hunting in his woods. As the sun began to set behind the West Virginia mountains, they heard it. The sound of someone walking through the forest. Footsteps, confident, unhurried, coming directly toward the bunker site. Whoever this was, he knew exactly where he was going. Through the trees, they saw him. Thomas Kyler, 34 years old, carrying a backpack full of supplies and what looked like fast food containers. He was bringing dinner to his prisoner. He had no idea his prisoner was gone. Keeler's arrest revealed the extent of his crimes, as he unapologetically confessed. His chilling admission indicated Rebecca was specifically chosen to survive as his permanent captive. Over 4 years, he abducted lone hikers, keeping them alive for weeks or months to study their psychological declines before disposing of their bodies in isolated areas. Unlike previous victims, Rebecca was a pet project, and Kyler meticulously planned to keep her in the bunker indefinitely, having perfected his method by selecting targets whose disappearances would not incite immediate search efforts, capitalizing on his extensive knowledge of the forest. Think about this for a second. Every time you've ever hiked alone, every time you've taken that shortcut through the woods, every time you've thought, "No one will miss me for a few hours," predators like Kyler are counting on exactly that mindset. How many times have you been completely alone in the wilderness? Let me know in the comments. But here's the detail that will never leave Chen's mind. During the investigation, he retraced his patrol routes for the past 12 years. The bunker was located just 20 feet from a trail he walked at least twice a week. 20 feet. Chen had walked past that spot hundreds of times. He had eaten his lunch on a fallen log less than 50 feet from where Rebecca was chained. He had radioed his daily check-ins while standing directly above an underground prison. For 4 years, while Chen was patrolling those woods, people were dying beneath his feet, and he never heard a sound. The forensic investigation eventually identified remains from 6 different victims in various locations throughout the forest. But investigators believe there were more. Kyler's journal, found in his cabin, contained references to at least 12 different subjects over 4 years. Some of those bodies have never been found. Keeler was sentenced to life without parole. He died in his cell in 2003, taking the locations of his other victims to the grave. Rebecca Martinez survived, but she was never the same. She moved back in with her parents, never hiked again, and never spoke publicly about her ordeal. But here's what keeps Chen awake at night. If he hadn't walked by that exact spot at that exact moment, Rebecca would have died down there. just like the others. And Thomas Kyler would have kept hunting. The question that still haunts investigators. How many other Kylers are out there? How many underground prisons hide just off popular trails? How many missing hikers aren't lost? They're trapped. Blackwater Canyon is still open. The bunker site, covered over. If you didn't know, you'd walk right past it, just like Chen did, for 12 long years. So think about this. The next time you hike alone, the next time you hear a sound that doesn't belong, remember Rebecca Martinez. Remember, someone built a prison just 20 feet from a trail and hunted people for 4 years. Chen walked past it hundreds of times and never knew the horror beneath his feet. So here's my question. What sounds are you not hearing? What's hiding 20 feet from your path? And hey, are you walking alone? If stories like this chill you and you want more true horror that makes you question the world around you, subscribe now.